Hi class, welcome back. We're here to really interpret the subsurface structure in our first geologic cross-section. Remember what we've done so far. We've identified data, different rock types in this geologic map. We've come down here and plotted those data. Those data include the names of the units. They include the boundaries between those units as vertical lines. And then for these special symbols, circle with this tilted or sloped line indicating the structural data that we've taken from the map here from our strike, dip direction, and dip value measurements. Now, the next step is to try to trace out the boundaries that we see up here in the subsurface. That means that every single one of these vertical lines has to be attempted in some way or for some distance and continued to move down into the subsurface. Where it goes is controlled or dictated by these dip layers or these dip symbols up above. For example, let's begin with the boundary between BC and BS. It has to be parallel to this symbol or this strike and dip projection here. And so it continues on down. Okay, I'm drawing this freehand. Notice above it's continuous with this symbol here. Okay, and we continue it on down like so. Okay, now notice a change is coming, and that change we're going to have to make an interpretation. And if I zip up here a little bit, zoom up, that change is showing that the dip direction is changing for this layer. So we're keeping this line consistent with the data above. So here it's got to actually go something like this. Okay. Now at this point I got to stop for a second and show you what we do with igneous rocks. This is a sedimentary boundary. Igneous rocks, that's what the GR is for granite. You're familiar with that. We're just going to do a squiggly contact straight down. They can really go anywhere because they're injected as a fluid, so it's not a lot of control here in terms of how we interpret them on this section. You know, this one, this contact here, I could actually take off to the side like this and then come down like that. It's an unusual shape for a granite, but you'd have trouble arguing against me in either either way if it goes this way or that way. Let's come then back to this line. So the granite actually cuts across, right? It's a later stage rock. We're going from BC to SS, so we need to get this line back to here. And we know that we have dip data that say it should come down in this fashion. Now, once you have one of those lines drawn in, you're in good shape to draw the rest in. Notice here's a contact that should be continued. We're going to keep the lines parallel, following the structural data, following the previous interpretation, and try to maintain a constant thickness. Okay? Parallel and constant thickness. Doing it freehand. You could use a ruler if you wanted. Parallel and constant thickness. Okay? Some of these could continue, but most of these contacts are actually covered up here along our cross-section line. The other thing we like to do in the world of geology is do a little coloring, a little shading. If you have colored pencils, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Okay. I've picked different colors for my contacts as I wanted you to be able to see them. Okay. But this is not required. Okay. Normally also I should say this, we color the map the same color as we color the cross section. So granite on the map is purple. Your granite is actually red, so I'm going against the grain here, but I just thought I would color this guy in for you guys to see what it looks like. Now, the question you may have is, what do I do with the rocks down below? This is an interesting question for us to ask. There is information. It is not completely unknown. What you might have, though, is a limit of this information on this particular profile or profile map. So you might actually have units that sit down here like this and would come down and then would come back up like that. But they actually don't show up at the top. So it's unknown, okay? But we can still interpret this region and you might even interpret that and shade it in. Given the map we have, we don't know what's going on, and that's okay. One thing to remember is whatever's going on, it can't just be empty space. All right, and that's it. There's a reasonable interpretation for that geologic cross-section.